Okay, talking technique, my friends, welcome. We're here in Module 5. We're going to be uncovering some of my favorite techniques on the acoustic guitar, particularly as they apply to open tunings. So for this module, we're going to kick off in open D tuning. Open D is easily my favorite tuning to play in, and so that's the one I've chosen for the first half of this. I will mention all of the techniques that we're going to talk about today, you can apply to any tuning, and I would highly encourage you to experiment in those other tunings as well, just to get a good feel for how we would use them. But for this example, we're going to use open D tunings. Now, in the first couple of modules, we've explored the tunings, we've talked about some of the left hand work, and what I want to do in this lesson is I want to talk a little bit more about the right hand. So if you're a left-handed player, that's the opposite, right? So you're picking hand. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about really just three main big ideas. We're going to talk about percussion in the right hand. What does it mean to add slaps and tapping, that sort of thing with our right hand? We're going to talk a little bit about finger style, some more specific and intricate patterns that we can incorporate into our playing. And then a little third part that I'm going to talk about at the end when it comes to harmonics. So we're going to dive into that now. All right, so I want to teach you the basic fundamental principle for slapping. So the first concept that we're going to talk about is slapping. I'm going to teach you the basic slap. And essentially what we're going to do is we're going to take our thumb and we're going to throw it into the strings, just like that. Now, you'll notice on my left hand that I'm muting the strings. I'm just holding them down. So what I should hear is a click. And that click is actually the string being thrown into the frets. And that's the click sound. So I can hit the body and make a thud, or I can hit the string, make a click. I can also somewhat do them simultaneously. And I get a little deeper it's kind of a click and a thud, just like that. One thing you can practice just to get started is just taking your thumb, pluck the string, and then slap. Just to get comfortable. Now let's go ahead and add in a little movement with our right hand. This is going to make it a little bit more dynamic. I'm going to pluck the open sixth string, then I'm going to pluck the open first and second string, and then I'm going to slap. Followed by one more pluck of the first and second strings. So it sounds like this. Okay, a little speed. Now at this point, I should mention, it's not as important that your slaps sound perfect. If you think about it, every time I slap the string, I might approach it with a slightly different velocity, a little bit different intensity, and it's really okay if some of your slaps are big clicks and if some are more taps. But the general feel should be about like that. It should just really feel like I'm just throwing my thumb into that sixth string. Now I should also mention that you can slap all of the strings. For example, you could take all 5 of your fingers or the whole palm and throw it into the string like that. That's fine. This is perfectly acceptable. But just consider, when you do that, if you've just played a chord, you're going to mute the entire chord when you do that, right? It's a little clunky. So that's the reason that we tend to lean into the lower string. So let me demonstrate what this would sound like with a chord progression. Let's take the 4 chord, the 6 chord, and the 5 chord for a spin. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pluck, and then I'm going to pull the strings, but instead of doing just strings 1 and 2, I'm actually going to add 3 in as well. So I'm going to go bass, chord, slap, chord, just like that. And up to speed, it would sound like this. So every time I slap the low string, that note goes away. So one of the tensions that we have to manage in percussive guitar playing is anytime we add percussion to a string, we lose whatever note was ringing. So that's something that you have to balance. And again, if I were to slap all the strings at once, I would lose all of the notes every time that happens. So it doesn't really work. It doesn't really achieve the same goal. So we're gonna stick with, for now, the thumb hitting the low string. So you'll also notice in this example, I am slapping on beats 2 and 4. So if you were counting along, essentially I'm going 1 and 2 and. The reason I mention that is most guitar players, I know not you, you're a good student or whatever, you love to count and you love rhythm and you can read music and you're so smart. But most of us, okay, we don't really think that way. We don't always think so much in rhythm and numbers. We tend to feel more like it's about the vibes, and it is, but I want you to think about something. As you grow as a player, that's one of those areas that you want to grow in, being able to count. So for example, think how a drummer would play his drum set. He's going to hit the snare drum on beats 2 and 4, or potentially maybe he hits the snare drum on every beat. Maybe he hits the snare drum on beat 3, but I want you to think about that because when you're playing, you now get to decide where you want that to go. That's kind of your snare drum. And so listen to what it sounds like if I play it on 2 and 4 versus just on beat 3. Hear how as soon as the snare drum moves to only beat 3, it creates this really, really interesting feel. We call that half time. So we literally cut it in half and we move that snare beat over to beat 3. So as you're improvising and creating slap rhythms, play around with it. Play around where you want the slaps to go. One final note is a lot of times I love to experiment with slapping on every beat. This is what that would sound like. Slapping on every beat can be a really, really nice way to create momentum, but there's only one problem. When I slap on every beat, I don't really have the ability to hear my bass note because I'm clicking where otherwise I would pluck the bass note. So if I want to achieve the slap on every beat, I can't hit the bass string with my slap. I actually need to repurpose the slap in a little bit of a different way. And so how I'm gonna do it is I'm gonna slap and then pluck the bass note. So it would sound like this. So what's happening is I'm throwing my fingers at the strings. And I want you to imagine that there is a bug or a rude person and you're trying to shoo them away. You're trying to shoo them away. Just get out of here, bug. I'm flicking my fingers this way. It's a little clunky at slow speed, so let's listen to what it sounds like as we speed it up. So there we have it. Now we can do a slap on beats 2 and 4. We know how to do it on beat 3, and we also know how to do the slap on every beat of the bar in 4/4 time. So as a side note, all of the same things that we were doing before with picking, we can do that with slapping. Remember that pattern that I showed you? Where I play simultaneously on the outside. I pick 3 and 2. And then bass, 1, 2, 3. Now let's see where it would feel natural for a slap to go. What we're gonna find, a little bit of a spoiler alert, it's not gonna feel right for it to go on 2 and 4 at this tempo. Why? Because whenever I am slapping, I need to be doing other things with my fingers. I need to be picking out some of those notes. So if I count that rhythm, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and. Well, wherever 2 and 4 are, that's where my slap would go. And I think that might muddy it up. So let's listen to what it sounds like if I move it to just beat 3. So there's my picking pattern. Let's add the slap. A little faster. A little faster. And now let's do it with the progression. Starting to sound a lot better. Now, as we progress along, remember, all of these things are things that you can slow down and take your time with, but the essential principles should remain the same. Wherever I add a slap onto the guitar, I need to have it calculated as to where I want it to go. And maybe a good exercise just for you to get comfortable with this is at the very beginning when we were just counting 1 and 2 and, spend enough time with that until it really feels comfortable that you can start to add some of the other elements like finger picking. Okay, so next we're gonna shift gears and talk a little bit about fingerstyle. Now, I teased it out a little earlier and I wanna give a little bit of an example of how to do Travis style picking. Now, this is going to be a very, very, very simple example and I promise you can do it. The goal of this is for it to sound like there are 2 people playing at one time. And the way that we do that is with our thumb, we are gonna now start to alternate picking string 6 and string 5. So how that's gonna work, just to practice, I'm gonna pluck 6, I'm gonna pull all 3 of the top strings 1, 2, and 3. I'm gonna play strings 1, 2, and 3, and then I'm gonna pluck the 5th string, and then 1, 2, and 3. So like this. So I'm alternating. If I take the same principle that we discovered in open G over to open D, if I bar across the 5th fret, I get my 4 chord. If I bar across the 7th fret, I get my 5 chord. If I bar across the 5th fret, I get my 4 chord. If I bar across the 7th fret, that's my 5 chord. So let's do that example, changing chords. So now to make this really sound interesting, I'm gonna play the same first half, but I'm gonna change the second half. The second half will be the 5th string, and then I'm gonna pick 2, 3, 1. So again, slowly. Okay, so before we add our chords in, I want to make one note about the transitions. Whenever we transition from chord to chord, we're going to leave off the very last note. So for example, it would sound like this going from the 1 to the 4 chord. So since I'm ending with the 3rd string, that gives me time to go ahead and move up and get ready for the next chord. This is what it would sound like. So that's Travis picking. Travis picking in essence is just the ability to have your thumb alternating bass notes. And it's going to make your finger picking part sound a lot more interesting. All right, switching gears, we're going to talk about harmonics. Now, in this section, we're going to introduce a little bit more about harmonics that we didn't talk about in the previous module. We already discovered the harmonics across the 12th fret. Now we're going to look at the harmonics on the 7th and 5th frets. The principle is the same. I lightly touch and I pluck the string. Now, this is a little odd, but you gotta roll with me on this. If you have a piece of paper in front of you or something to take notes with, here's what I want you to do. I want you to make a note, maybe even using your tuner as a little bit of a guide. I want you to write down the names of each of these notes. It's really easy. I'm gonna show you how we're gonna do it. The 12th fret notes are all gonna be the same as the open string. For example, the 12th fret harmonic is D, because that's the D string. Well, the nice thing is the 5th fret harmonic is also a D, but up an octave. So D and D. So we know that. The 7th fret harmonic is a 5th above that note. And here's an easy way to do it. If you're unsure of how to memorize it, it's a really simple way. You're gonna start with the letter on your thumb, so D, E, F, G, A. So you're gonna count up 5 letters to tell you what the name of this harmonic would be. So this is a D, that's an A. This is an A, this is an E. This is an F sharp, this is a C sharp. This is a D, this is an A, E, D, A. Now with that in mind, I want to begin to work those harmonics into our pedaling. We've already looked at the pedaling technique, and here's one of my absolute favorite runs that I like to do with harmonics. We're going to start with the 5th fret harmonic of the 3rd string, then the 7th fret of the 2nd string, and the 1st string 12th fret. Now by doing that, I've actually played the notes F sharp, E, and D. So I'm gonna noodle around a little bit with some of the shapes we've already looked at, and then I'm gonna finish off with those harmonics, and let's listen to how it sounds. Isn't that cool? So the harmonic can actually be a part of our improvisation. It can be some of the melody that we're actually choosing to play. So as far as that goes, spend some time with the harmonics, get comfortable with where they are, and then you can start to work them into your melodies. So one last note about harmonics, pun intended, I'll be honest, I did think about that before I said it. I do want to show you how to create a harmonic with just one hand. Now, I'm going to be totally honest here, this is a very, very, very difficult technique to get comfortable with, but it's something that if you practice, I know you can improve at. What we're gonna do is we're gonna use our first finger on our right hand to touch the string where we wanna have a harmonic happen. So for example, I want to play the 1st string on the 12th fret. I'm gonna use my ring finger, same hand, to pluck that string. So I'm gonna touch, and I'm going to pluck with one hand. So one finger is able to touch where the harmonic goes, and another finger is able to pluck that string. Now, this is one of my favorite techniques for a couple of reasons. What I like about being able to do a harmonic in this way is if I fret a note anywhere on the neck, if I count up 12 frets from that note, I can play a harmonic of this note. So for example, if I hold the second fret of the first string, I'm going to count up 12. That would put me at fret 14, and I can play a harmonic. I can do that anywhere. Now I'm on the 4th fret, 12 frets up would be fret 16, and I can do that. You get a little more comfortable, and then you can start to play these all over the neck. And you can do this in any tuning, by the way, but open tunings, they just sound so good. I just think it's one of my favorites to do it with. I'll kick off with a pedal, and then I'll improvise a little bit with the artificial harmonics. So the one-handed harmonic technique is a really, really nice way to spice up your playing. How I would encourage you to do that is take it very, very slow and really, really simplify the concept. To play a harmonic means to go 12, 7, or 5 frets higher than whatever note is ringing. That's an easy way to think about that. I will also mention, you're going to find that the 5th fret harmonics are the hardest to grab. That is just the nature of harmonics. Those are the hardest ones to play. Fret 12 and fret 7 are much easier, and they tend to come out a little bit clearer. So just make sure if you're having trouble with your harmonics that your finger is directly over the fret, and then you remove it as soon as you play it. Okay, so to wrap up, there's one more big concept that we haven't touched yet that I really want to make sure that we hit, and that is the idea of finding thirds in any tuning. And we're going to stick with open D for this example, and here's how we're going to do that. I want to start with demonstrating the shape of a third. So on the 2nd and 1st strings, a major third is 1 fret apart. So there's no fret in the gap, they're side by side. If I play the 5th fret and the 4th fret at the same time, I get a major third. If I go up to the 7th fret and 5th fret, this is a minor third. Now the only thing that I want you to take away from this is that I can play these up the neck to basically outline the scale. So if I start here, I can go through the shapes. And then most acoustic guitars were kind of running out around 12 or 14. This is a cutaway. I could keep going, but that's where I'll end right there. And now I want to go back down to find the ones below this. So on strings 1 and 2, you'll hear that these two notes are now in harmony with one another. So instead of just playing the single scale up the 1st string, I can now harmonize it. So now I want to take these 2-note examples and I want to let you listen to what it sounds like with pedaling. To add a little flair, let's take the 1st finger and pull off after every note. Want to make it a little spicier? Instead of pedaling, I'm going to take my thumb and I'm going to move down to the 2nd string for this example. And I want to pick them one at a time. I'm going to pick string 2, then 1, and then pull off. With a little speed. Now, as a principle, you might be saying, well, what does that have to do with technique? I already know about pull-offs. What I want to encourage you to do is think of pull-offs or hammer-ons as a way to increase the subdivision in your playing. So for example, if you want something to sound like it has more movement, add a pull-off, add a hammer-on, because what you're doing is doubling the amount of notes, because you can do a hammer-on oftentimes a lot faster than you could pick the next note, especially when you're playing fingerstyle. So an example we looked at earlier is by playing the pull-offs from the 4th to the 2nd fret to open, I could create a lick. I could also do that with any of the notes on the 1st string that are in the scale. And because I'm in an open tuning, remember, the open strings are playing for us. They're on our team. And so what we can do is essentially anywhere we find notes in the scale, we can pull off to that open string. So anywhere that I can find the scale on the guitar, I can do a pull-off in an open tuning to an open string, and it's going to sound good. So quick story time. I can still remember where I was the first time that I ever heard the song Eruption by Eddie Van Halen. This was kind of a formative time for me in my life. I was probably 12 years old. I just kind of started to tinker with guitar. And I can remember listening to the radio, and my dad loved classic rock radio. So we were always listening to that stuff. And I would hear all of the regular old kind of blues, electric guitar players, and I thought it was cool. But I heard Eruption, and something about Eruption kind of just blew my mind up. I couldn't quite make sense of what I was hearing. And for most of you, you'll probably know this, the technique that is most popularized in the song Eruption is tapping. And what tapping is essentially taking the picking hand and pressing the string down without picking it to create a note. So for example, if I take my right hand and I just take the flat part of my first finger and I press, I get a note. Just like that. Now, the acoustic guitar is not necessarily the most iconic for tapping, but it actually can be a really cool technique to implement into your playing, especially on an advanced level. So if you're interested in developing this skill, here's 2 ways that you can incorporate it. You can incorporate tapping on the melody strings. For example, pairing something like that pull-off we learned by beginning with a tap note would sound like this. So the tap note is the first note of the series. After I tap, I pull off, and I create the next note. And now I can create much faster runs of notes. I can also incorporate tapping on different notes of the scale. Keeping these 2 the same, I'm going to change my right hand. Let's hear what that would sound like. So that would be tapping on the melody strings. Now let's look at tapping on the bass strings. Now I'm going to add a little extra flair to this one. This is, again, kind of an advanced thing, but I think it's something that you would have a lot of fun playing with. Practice this. Tap the 5th fret of the 6th string. And then use another finger to pluck a string. 7th fret. Now think of the possibilities that this creates for us. So if I wanted to, in theory, I could tap and pluck notes out of a piece of music. Now, I'm going to leave it up to your imagination what you do with that information. I'm not going to tell anybody where you go from here. I'm just going to say that as a basis or a principle, tapping can be a great way to unlock an open tuning and really, really find some cool stuff. In summary, did we talk about every technique that is possible on the acoustic guitar? Absolutely not. We didn't even go that far in depth with all of these, but more than anything, I hope it's a flavor and a taste of something that will really get you inspired and wanting to play the acoustic guitar more. See, when I was young, I didn't really have a band. I didn't play with anybody. I sat in my room and I played by myself most of the time. And so what I found is that a deep love of the guitar came from an exploration of the guitar. Everybody's built a little different, but I just want to remind you, you can do all of these things. All of these techniques can be under your fingers with a little bit of practice and a little time. And so I hope you've enjoyed talking a little bit about technique. I would really encourage you to lean into slapping, harmonics, and tapping. I really think that you're going to get a lot out of those. So in the next video, we're going to discuss melody, which is one of my all-time favorite things to talk about. See you there.